An expert at the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network says the recent earthquake is a mirror image to what could happen here in our region.
Local scientists have made an exciting discovery on the seafloor along the Cascadia Subduction Zone.
The Cascadia Subduction Zone has long stood as one of the most enigmatic and dangerous geological features on Earth. Stretching from Northern California through Oregon and Washington into British Columbia, this immense tectonic boundary marks the collision between the Juan de Fuca Plate and the massive North American Plate. Recently, USGS scientists issued a striking red alert after satellites detected a significant uplift across portions of this fault system. This kind of vertical movement is not a minor occurrence. It signals changes deep beneath the surface where colossal geological forces are at play, forces that have historically produced some of the most catastrophic seismic events on record. The warning has captured global attention because such an uplift suggests the system may be under mounting stress, and the implications for millions living in the Pacific Northwest are profound. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The satellites in question employ high-resolution radar and GPS-based technology, allowing scientists to detect even the smallest surface deformations over large areas. What makes this discovery alarming is the scale of the uplift. Unlike minor bulges or localized shifts, this is widespread movement that extends across a vast stretch of the subduction zone. An uplift of this magnitude points to a significant buildup of tectonic pressure. In simple terms, the oceanic plate is pressing harder against the continental margin, and the locked boundary is beginning to buckle upward. Historically, this is often the prelude to a major rupture. For decades, seismologists and geologists have warned that Cascadia is due for a massive earthquake, an event often described as the Big One. The last confirmed megathrust quake in the region struck in January 1700, registering a magnitude near 9.0 and sending a tsunami across the Pacific Ocean that struck the coast of Japan. Over 3 centuries have passed since that catastrophe, and the geologic record suggests the recurrence interval for such events ranges between 250 and 500 years. With that context, the recent uplift is being seen not as an isolated curiosity, but as a potential precursor to renewed tectonic activity. The red alert from the USGS is not a casual decision. Their color-coded warning system is designed to communicate the seriousness of geological hazards. Green typically reflects normalcy, yellow signals elevated observation, orange indicates significant concern, and red stands for immediate risk requiring heightened awareness and preparation. By moving Cascadia into the red category, officials are making it clear that the situation is critical. It is not a declaration that an earthquake will strike tomorrow, but it emphasizes that the conditions are now in place for such an event to occur at any moment. One of the most concerning aspects of uplift in a subduction zone is what it reveals about locked versus creeping segments of the fault. In creeping zones, plates slide past one another more gradually, relieving pressure. But in locked zones, stress accumulates silently until it eventually releases in a violent rupture. Cascadia is largely considered a locked subduction zone. The measured uplift suggests that enormous amounts of energy are being stored in the crust. The longer this continues, the larger the eventual earthquake may be when that energy finally bursts free. From a scientific perspective, uplift is a kind of geological language. The Earth speaks through movement, and interpreting these signals is at the core of seismology. A sudden rise in land elevation indicates a pressurized system that is actively deforming. This kind of deformation has historically preceded some of the world's greatest earthquakes, such as those that struck Sumatra in 2004 and Chile in 1960. Both events were preceded by measurable uplifts, later understood as the warning signs of tectonic strain. That Cascadia is now exhibiting similar signs raises urgent questions about the region's future. The implications extend far beyond geology. Cascadia is home to major metropolitan areas, including Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, and countless coastal towns. The population density has grown significantly since the last major quake in 1700. Infrastructure such as bridges, dams, highways, and pipelines crisscrosses the region, most of which was not built to withstand a full-scale megathrust earthquake. A red alert in this context is not just a scientific observation, but a societal one. It is a reminder that millions of lives and trillions of dollars in assets are directly tied to the behavior of this immense fault system. Tsunami potential also looms large in this warning. A massive uplift along the subduction interface has the potential to displace colossal volumes of seawater. Historical and geological records confirm that the 1700 Cascadia quake generated a tsunami that traveled across the Pacific. If a similar event occurred today, the immediate wave impacts on the Pacific Northwest coastline would be devastating, with waves reaching heights of 30 to 100 feet in some locations. The red alert underscores the dual threat, both seismic shaking inland and massive waves along the shore. What makes the situation even more complex is the unpredictability of timing. Uplift can precede an earthquake by days, months, or even years. It is a symptom of mounting stress, not a countdown clock. Scientists caution that while the alert is serious, it does not guarantee imminent disaster. Yet the fact that such widespread deformation has been detected means the tectonic system is restless, and history tells us that restless subduction zones do not stay quiet forever. In terms of research, the red alert represents an extraordinary opportunity for geoscientists. The region has been outfitted with hundreds of seismic monitoring stations, GPS sensors, and coastal buoys designed to measure wave activity. Every tremor, every shift, every tide fluctuation is now under heightened observation. The data gathered could refine predictive models not only for Cascadia but for subduction zones worldwide. By studying this uplift, scientists may unlock patterns that improve early warning systems in Japan, Chile, Alaska, and beyond. Communities across the Pacific Northwest have long been told to prepare for the eventual Cascadia quake, but human nature often drifts toward complacency when the danger seems abstract or distant. The USGS Red Alert has shifted that danger into immediate focus. It reminds residents and officials alike that preparation is not optional, but essential. Emergency plans, evacuation routes, and structural reinforcements gain a new urgency when the ground itself has signaled a change. There is also a broader psychological dimension to such a warning. Living with the knowledge of potential disaster is never easy, and for many, the idea of a megathrust quake feels overwhelming. Yet the red alert also offers clarity. It removes ambiguity about the seriousness of the threat and underscores the need for decisive action. When faced with such raw geological forces, preparation becomes a form of empowerment. Beyond local concerns, the Cascadia uplift has global implications. The Pacific Ocean is ringed by subduction zones, collectively known as the Ring of Fire. Events in one segment often draw comparisons to others as patterns and similarities emerge. The red alert serves as a stark reminder to other vulnerable regions, Japan, Indonesia, Chile, that Earth's greatest quakes remain part of the planet's natural rhythm. Cascadia's awakening adds urgency to global studies of plate tectonics, hazard mitigation, and disaster resilience. Satellite data has been instrumental in reshaping how scientists understand earthquakes. Decades ago, such uplift might have gone unnoticed, until smaller foreshocks or ground-level surveys revealed anomalies. Today, real-time spaceborne observation provides an unprecedented window into Earth's shifting crust. The fact that this technology has detected massive uplift in Cascadia is both a testament to scientific progress and a sobering indicator of the forces at work beneath our feet. While the red alert itself does not specify outcomes, it points to a landscape undergoing active transformation. Rivers may subtly shift their courses as the ground tilts. Coastal wetlands could experience changes in drainage. Underground aquifers might be altered. Such subtle shifts may not capture headlines, but are the quiet footprints of immense forces moving through the crust. For engineers and urban planners, the alert represents both a challenge and an opportunity. Retrofitting vulnerable structures, reinforcing transportation corridors, and revising building codes take on immediate relevance. The knowledge that uplift is underway validates decades of warnings and gives policymakers the evidence needed to secure funding and resources for resilience projects. In many ways, the alert transforms scientific caution into actionable urgency. The scale of Cascadia's uplift also touches on cultural and historical narratives. Indigenous communities along the Pacific Northwest coast have oral traditions that recount massive floods and ground-shaking events, stories that align with the geologic record of the 1700 quake. These narratives remind us that the land has always held memory of its violent past, and the recent uplift may be another chapter in that ancient story. What stands out most about the current situation is the confluence of natural history, human society, and advanced science. The Earth is speaking through its movements. Technology is capturing those signals in unprecedented detail, and humanity is left to interpret and act upon them. The USGS Red Alert is the convergence point of these forces, crystallizing centuries of geological patterns into a present-day warning. No one can say with certainty what the next days, months, or years will bring for Cascadia. What is clear, however, is that the subduction zone has entered a new phase of activity. The massive uplift detected by satellites is not a minor anomaly, but a profound sign of deep tectonic unrest. Whether this culminates in a massive quake, a series of smaller tremors, or a drawn-out period of deformation, the reality is that Cascadia is alive, dynamic, and capable of reshaping the landscape in moments. The Red Alert is, at its core, a signal to pay attention. The forces beneath the Pacific Northwest are gathering, as they have countless times before, and humanity is once again reminded of its fragile place atop a restless planet. The story of Cascadia is still being written, and with every millimeter of uplift, the urgency to understand and prepare grows stronger. The reality of tectonic uplift in the Cascadia Subduction Zone has created a renewed sense of urgency not only among scientists, but also among the millions of people who call the Pacific Northwest home. While the immediate focus has been on the scientific significance of the USGS Red Alert, there are countless other layers to the unfolding story that reveal just how deeply intertwined geology is with culture, society, and the long-term vision of human settlement along vulnerable coastlines. The detection of massive uplift is not an isolated data point, but rather the beginning of a broader conversation about how people coexist with some of the most powerful forces on Earth. One of the most intriguing dimensions of this development is the relationship between human history and geological cycles. The Cascadia region has seen waves of human migration and settlement over thousands of years. Coastal tribes have lived in harmony with the land and sea, passing down oral traditions that describe great floods and earth-shaking events. These stories were once dismissed by outsiders as myth, but scientific investigation has increasingly confirmed their accuracy. Geological evidence of subsided coastal forests, sand deposits from ancient tsunamis, and sudden drownings of marshlands line up perfectly with these narratives. The massive uplift now observed may very well be part of the same story arc that indigenous peoples have spoken about for centuries. To them, the land is alive, and the Red Alert is not a new revelation, but a reminder of truths they have always known. In the broader landscape of planetary science, the event also highlights how subduction zones function as engines of geological change. Uplift is not only a prelude to earthquakes, but also a driver of mountain building. The Cascades themselves, with their line of volcanoes from Mount Shasta to Mount Garibaldi, owe their existence to the ongoing subduction of the Juan de Fuca Plate. Every rise in land, every inch of elevation gained through tectonic pressure, adds to the slow sculpting of the continent. This means the current uplift is part of the continuous story of North America's growth and reshaping. Far from being a static backdrop, the land itself is a participant in history, rising and falling on timescales that dwarf human lives. From a technological standpoint, the Red Alert illustrates the growing importance of remote sensing and satellite monitoring. Earth observation has transformed from a tool of academic research into a frontline system for public safety. Where seismographs once provided the only clues, now constellations of satellites scan for subtle shifts in the crust with centimeter-level accuracy. The Cascadia uplift detection demonstrates how humanity has entered an age where planetary-scale changes can be monitored in near real time. This ability is reshaping how warnings are issued, how governments plan responses, and how societies understand their place within Earth's cycles. It underscores the profound connection between space technology and ground-level survival. Economically, the implications of the alert ripple through every sector. The Pacific Northwest is a hub of global trade, with major ports in Seattle, Tacoma, and Portland handling vast amounts of cargo. These ports sit directly within the danger zone of seismic shaking and potential tsunami inundation. An event triggered by the tectonic uplift would instantly disrupt supply chains, not just across North America, but worldwide. Airlines, shipping companies, and rail networks that depend on the stability of Cascadia's infrastructure would all be at risk. Insurance markets and real estate valuations are already sensitive to seismic hazards, and the declaration of a red alert intensifies questions about long-term resilience. The uplift is not just a geological fact, it is a financial stress test for the region and beyond. Energy systems are equally vulnerable. The Pacific Northwest has critical hydropower dams, natural gas pipelines, and electrical transmission corridors that thread across the very terrain now undergoing tectonic deformation. Uplift changes the way rivers flow, alters soil stability, and increases landslide risk. If the crust continues to bulge upward, pressure on existing infrastructure could grow even before a major quake is triggered. The region's reliance on these energy systems means that the red alert forces policymakers to confront questions of redundancy, backup power, and diversification of supply. It highlights how intertwined geology and modern civilization truly are. Another compelling dimension of the story is ecological. The Pacific Northwest is renowned for its rich ecosystems, from salmon-bearing rivers to dense temperate rainforests. Geological uplift can have profound effects on these systems. Rivers may shift their courses as land tilts, affecting spawning runs. Wetlands may drain or flood in new ways. Uplift can even create ghost forests, where stands of trees suddenly find their roots flooded with salt water as the ground shifts relative to sea level. Such transformations remind us that earthquakes and tectonic processes are not just human disasters, but ecological resets, reshaping the very environments that species depend upon. The red alert thus speaks not only to human safety, but to the broader continuity of life across the region. Psychologically, the knowledge of massive uplift beneath one's feet brings a new kind of awareness. Many residents of Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia already live with an undercurrent of anxiety about Cascadia's reputation as a ticking time bomb. Yet a scientific confirmation that the crust is actively bulging changes the narrative from abstract possibility to tangible reality. Families discuss evacuation plans more seriously. Schools revisit emergency drills with greater focus. Even casual conversations in coffee shops and workplaces begin to circle around what-if scenarios. This subtle shift in collective psychology can have powerful consequences, creating both fear and resilience. Fear arises from the magnitude of the threat, but resilience emerges from the shared understanding that preparation is not an individual burden, but a community endeavor. Globally, the detection of uplift in Cascadia resonates with other tectonically active regions. The subduction zones off Japan, Chile, Alaska, and Indonesia all share similarities with Cascadia. Each has produced devastating earthquakes in recent memory, and each remains capable of more. Scientists from around the world are watching closely, comparing data sets and testing hypotheses about the universality of uplift as a precursor to seismic events. Cascadia is not just a regional concern, but a case study for humanity's efforts to decode the language of the Earth. The red alert acts as a global classroom, teaching lessons that may one day save lives far from North America. Another critical angle is urban vulnerability. Modern cities are dense networks of glass, steel, and concrete, but many of their foundations rest on sediments that can amplify seismic waves. Portland, for instance, sits on the Willamette Valley, which could shake more violently than surrounding bedrock. Seattle is built near artificial fill and reclaimed land around its waterfront, making liquefaction a serious hazard. Vancouver, though farther north, faces similar risks. The massive uplift adds weight to these concerns, suggesting that the seismic loading of the region may be approaching a breaking point. The red alert thus becomes a challenge for architects, engineers, and city planners who must envision ways to keep cities both livable and survivable in the face of tectonic reality. Looking deeper into the mechanics of uplift, the event also highlights the extraordinary forces at work beneath Cascadia. The Juan de Fuca plate, though small compared to the Pacific plate, is still enormous on human scales. As it plunges beneath North America, it drags hydrated oceanic crust into the mantle, creating partial melting that feeds volcanoes while simultaneously building pressure along the plate interface. Uplift occurs because the locked fault stores elastic energy, bending the overriding plate upward. This elastic deformation is like a drawn bowstring, steadily pulling tighter. When it finally releases, The stored energy is unleashed in seismic waves that ripple across landscapes. The red alert is the scientific recognition that the bowstring is now pulled dangerously taut. The red alert also brings forward discussions about long-term relocation. While abandoning entire metropolitan areas is unrealistic in the near term, some coastal communities already face existential questions. Towns built on narrow strips of land between ocean and forest, particularly those without elevated ground nearby, have few options during a tsunami. For them, the combination of uplift and the warning it signifies raises difficult questions. Should future growth be redirected inland? Should existing towns invest in vertical evacuation towers? These are not abstract debates, but urgent planning questions that could determine survival when the fault eventually slips. Education is another vital element in the unfolding response to the red alert. Schools across the region become hubs for both training and awareness. Children learn not only to drop, cover, and hold during shaking, but also to understand the natural signs of a tsunami, sudden ground shaking followed by a rapid retreat of the ocean. Embedding such knowledge in younger generations ensures that preparedness becomes second nature. The uplift detection gives renewed momentum to these educational programs, underscoring that the threat is not theoretical, but ongoing. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the USGS red alert in Cascadia? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.